we'll go ahead and get started. Sarah.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming today. Unfortunately, our lovely peer Cynthia is not able to join us. She's feeling a little bit under the weather, so I'm going to take over for her and do some quick accessibility information. So, for those of us who need it or want it, we have captions available with a manual captioner, and they're available through Zoom. So if you go to the bottom of your screen and click the Show Captions tab, those should pop up. They're also running at captionviewer.net, and I think maybe Tia, if you have the link for that, we can paste it in the chat. You do not need to be on the Zoom app to access the event. You are able to dial in via phone if necessary. We're going to read all questions and information out loud and voice any images on screen, so the content will be available to all individuals who are calling in on the phone or can't see the visual content. The event is being recorded and I think will be posted to the Disability Empowerment Center's YouTube channel at a later date. And I will be helping Tia monitor questions periodically through the discussion via the chat. Just know that she's going through the presentation, so we might not answer your questions in real time, but we have people who are looking and hopefully able to address those at a certain point. And then we're going to use both person with a disability and disabled person interchangeably, recognizing people's different preferences for person first or identity first language. Um, so with that, I will turn it over to Tia.
Hey guys. And then I think Sarah might have mentioned it as well. Our ASL interpreter isn't able to be here today, but we should have an individual back next week for our Tuesday and Thursday events. So now we'll go ahead and get into the slides. Of course, pose any questions that you have in the chat for us, and we'll get to them as we get going. So welcome. This is our event on getting ready together emergency preparedness, specifically on evacuating versus sheltering in place. My name is Tia Ballou. I am an AmeriCorps member serving at the Disability Empowerment Center, and I am focusing on emergency management coordination. And this is a conversation that we want to have going and continuing, talking about the ways that emergency preparedness and management can be more inclusive, taking all universal ideals and thoughts and accessibility modes into perspective. So first, we're going to get started with a little check-in. If anybody wants to type in the chat, or if you prefer to mute or unmute, and if you'd like to answer if you've ever heard of a stay kit or a go bag or a get home bag, why you think it might be important to have an emergency kit, and what are a couple of important items that you would include in a kit. And that can be general or specific to yourself.
I have heard of these kits. I haven't actually made them, but I have observed or kind of taken note of like conversations around it also like how it can also include pet food. And had someone or joined a little space where someone made a tiny kit that had some like small scissors, certain type of I don't know if it was thread or like a metal kind of thing for mending some like a material. But yeah, I haven't quite made them yet.
Great. Yeah, those are great. Including pets is huge, and sometimes it's not included on the really essential or basic ones that we see. But a lot of this is talking about how you need to cater it to your needs and your environment and your situation. So it was perfect.
I mentioned in the chat that Eastern Washington has some issues with wildfires coming up, so I've definitely experienced um, putting together some to-go bags, thinking about the important things to bring with you. But I think it definitely depends on the needs of the people creating them. So you can definitely have generalizable content that you put in the bags that's useful and necessary when you are evacuating. But especially I think for things like medication or durable medical equipment, it's something that you have to think about pretty far in advance, especially if you might not be able to refill those prescriptions, or if these are like additional supplies that you're not actively using. I know that I had some troubles planning in advance when trying to negotiate that with pharmacies.
Yes, definitely. A lot of times it's referred to as just have extra of X, Y, and Z, and actually acquiring those can be many more hoops between needing it and knowing it's on the list and actually adding it to your kit. That's a huge component.
Jill said that they've heard of them and it's important to have important essential items for each person, medications, food. And then Mur said, from what I understand, stay bag is for sheltering in place, so includes basic needs for everyone in your household for a period of time. And go bag is for evacuation, so includes similar items, plus essential items you might need, like identity documents, extra medications, etc.
Perfect. Yeah, it sounds like you guys have a good base knowledge on this. So some of this might be repeated info for you, but we will go on and get started. So, kind of in general, when to evacuate would be if there's a threat of imminent danger, if you're ordered by authorities, or if your home or location that you're at is unsafe. And then times when you would shelter in place are when it's safer where you are, or it's, sorry, it's when you're sheltering in place is when it's safer where you are versus outside. Again, if you're ordered by authorities, as well as if getting to a location or evacuating from a location would be more dangerous or impossible for you. So that's kind of the general of, um, if it's immediately unsafe or authorities believe it's unsafe, don't go. And then if there is imminent danger that you can see or know of, or authorities warn you, you want to listen and evacuate. Going back to the slides that we covered on Tuesday, we went over the top 18. I have the top 10 hazards in Seattle listed. And the first one is earthquakes, second, snow and ice, windstorms, power outages, cyber attacks and disruptions, as well as two more down the list of disease outbreak and excessive heat are all going to be events that you would want to shelter in place versus evacuate. And then for things like landslides, flooding, tsunamis, and seiches, as well as fires, which are listed later on through the 18 hazards list, those are going to be events where you'll want to evacuate. Um, so it is a majority or likely that an event would respond in you sheltering in place. So because of that, we will kind of focus on having a stay kit in ways that you guys can be prepared and have the resources to succeed. But of course, we're also going to talk about evacuating because it is still a possibility. and there are events that happen, like there were recent flooding events around Seattle that people did have to evacuate. So it is good to have both. And the kits that we're going to go over will be applicable for both things, and a lot of times they'll be very similar supplies.
Yeah, real quickly, we just had a question about the previous slide. Were the yellow highlighted things the ones where you would shelter in place?
Yes, yeah. So for the visual component on the slide, the yellow indicates the highlighted hazards when you would want to shelter. And then the unhighlighted for the landslides, flooding, tsunamis, and then fires, which are not on this slide, but also included, are ones when you would want to evacuate. So we're going to go over 3 types of resource kits. So there are stay kits, there are go bags, and there are get home bags. So these were touched on from Mur in the comments, which were wonderful. So the first is a stay kit. This is something that you keep where you live. It's going to be more comprehensive. It's going to be for a bit longer period of time, at least 72 hours, sometimes longer. And we'll go into why it is 72 hours. But this is going to be helpful for anyone in your household, if that is family members or maybe your roommates and you all have one shared stay kit and everything. It's going to be more comprehensive. So the reason why 72 hours is commonly referred to with stay kits and go bags is because about 3 days or 72 hours, 3 to 4 days, is going to be the period of time when it'll about that length of time before responders or additional resources will be able to be brought in. So it's and really important to be able to be as self-sustaining as you can up until that, because you'll probably be the first one there for your home, for your people that you're with. Maybe your neighbors might need assistance. So you want to be set for that period of time. Beyond that is when they might have shelters and more access to things, people that can come in and go door to door and check on individuals. So next is the go bag. Sometimes it's called a bug out bag because you're getting out of that situation. And this is for when you would need to evacuate. So like the hazards that we just mentioned, really common ones are fire, flood, tsunamis. And then we didn't refer to it, but also for medical emergencies, these are really useful. If you have a medical emergency and responders arrive to your home, you can direct them to where your go bag is, and they can put it in the ambulance, bring it with you, and it'll have some items that make it more comfortable for you if you are at the hospital longer than you intended. You have a phone charger, a toothbrush, some comforts that make it easier for events like that outside of natural disasters as well. And then lastly is a get home bag. Well, actually, let me go back to the go bag because this is going to be smaller than a stay kit, but it's also going to be what sustains you for 24 to 72 hours when you're leaving a situation. So this might look like evacuating to a neighbor's, or not a neighbor's, but a friend's in the area. It could be someone evacuating to a hotel. So it kind of varies on what you might need, but a lot of times it's, food, water, sanitation items, and then comforts like a phone charger, protection from elements like a sleeping bag, anything that you might need for that 24 to 72 hours. And then the get home bag is going to be what you actually have with you. So since disasters happen whenever, unfortunately, there is no warning or alarm for most events. Sometimes it can be, like warned and preemptively alerted to evacuate. But we won't know, oh, something's happening the third Tuesday of next month. We'll have things prepared by then. So that's why it's good to have a go bag and a get home bag so that you have items with you on your person or in your car, if you have a vehicle, at your work, if you have a workplace, something that maybe you take it with you if you commute. It's an extra side bag that you carry, a tote bag. But it'll be items that make it safe for you to get back to wherever you are living or a safer location from wherever you're at. 'Cause a lot of times people are working, it might be midday, you aren't at home where all your resources are, and that go or get home bag will be really important for you.
We have a couple things that have been mentioned in the chat. Cindy said that FEMA now recommends 2 weeks. And I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but this was for the stay kits, stay at home, the 2 weeks for that. For areas with major disaster potential, like Cascadia subduction earthquake zone. And then we had a question about what the contents of the get home bag have, like whether that's personal belongings or something else.
Yeah. So thank you, Cindy. There are updates for sure. And so I wasn't aware of the 2 week stretch of time as well. So those stay kits are going to be ideally for, well, 2 weeks for you to be able to stay at home, and then having at least 3 to 4 days at minimum to be prepared for. And like she said, up to 2 weeks. And then going into the details of the kits, we're going to jump into all of those right now. So we'll go through and break down each of those contents and what that can look like. Of course, we'll get into it more as it goes. So for an overall emergency kit, there are 10 essentials that you want to think about. On the screen, there's an infographic with 10 squares, and the first being non-perishable food and water. The second being a flashlight, or this could be a light source with extra batteries. I also say light source, it could be a headlamp for a like non-handheld option, or flashlights or lanterns. The third is a first aid kit. The fourth is sanitation and hygiene supplies. The fifth is sleeping bags and warm blankets. The sixth is communication devices. Seventh is change of clothing and shoes. Seventh is eyeglasses and hearing aids. And then we have medications and equipment. And then the last one is health information and documents. But I also want to include important documents overall into that as well. I know important documents can be kind of a vague term in quotes. We'll also go over what some of those are, health information being a huge one. So for the kits, I want to put an asterisk with them because these are items that we want to mention. Some of them get very specific, and then some of them are kind of intending to get you thinking about your circumstances and what you might personally need. So some of these items may not apply. For example, my partner wears contacts, but I don't. So that would be a difference in what our kits or our go bags might look like. That's kind of a smaller example, but for some people, it might look like having to have a whole extra durable equipment setup, which would really change how these look for different people. So that's why we have these on here, but I do want to put that asterisk. Also, this can be kind of overwhelming to look at. There's a lot of items. It can be kind of financially daunting too, but it is important to think that A, you are helping to prepare yourself for the future as well. B, there are resources out there that you might be able to get things cheaper, or there might be grants or funding accessible for things like durable medical equipment. And then there are options of low cost variety of items. You might be able to get, for example, the NOAA weather radios. Those are sometimes given out at emergency preparedness events. So you don't need to go out immediately and buy tons of fancy gear, tons of everything, because you do want to make sure that it's practical to yourself and your situation without wasting your money at the same time. So the first one is water. Water is huge. It's also going to take up a fair amount of space, but it is important. They estimate at least 1 gallon of water per person per day for at least 3 days. So that'll be, for a household of 2 people, that'll be at least, well, you also kind of want to err on the safe side and you want to add more if you have pets. So they predict that that 1 gallon of water would also be able to be used for rinsing items throughout the day or things like that. But if you know that you might want to rinse off more, it's better to have stored water ahead of time than to rely on the resource and the time and the availability of running water and clean water in the event that something does happen. So at least 1 gallon of water per person per day for 3 days. For food, it is non-perishable food for at least 3 days. But now that we've also gone over that there are some updates, as Cindy was saying, FEMA is now projecting 2 weeks. So for all of these, you're going to want to draw these out and have even more resources. Things like non-perishable food, some people will think of processed foods or peanut butter sandwiches, but there are things that are beyond that. There's MREs or ready-to-eat meals that are either freeze-dried options or options that you just add water, you don't need a heating element. And those you can often get in bulk. You can also get them at camping stores. You can get them online. I think they sell them at Walmart as well. Flashlights and extra batteries. That one is self-explanatory, but like we said, you can also do headlamps for a non-handheld option. Next is first aid kit. Of course, preset first aid kits are sold, but sometimes it's better to have your own that you create so that there's not added items that don't apply to you. But, sometimes the kits that they sell pre-made, those work super well. They just aren't always the most space efficient. Next is battery-powered NOAA radios. Like I said, you might be able to get them at events. They also have them online through all of the major retailers. Duct tape, that one is super useful, self-explanatory, but it can be great for a myriad of situations. Extra medications and medical supplies. So this one is going to be tailored to whatever your individual needs are. This might be just an over-the-counter medication that you can put some into the bag. There's always adding extra glasses if you wear glasses or contacts. For medications specifically, I know it can be hard just to get prescriptions refilled, period. But one way to do it is to take a week or two of your medication that you currently use and then keep them in your stay kit. When you go to get a refill or you get your next refill on whatever your prescription is, you take 2 weeks from that one and swap it with what is in your kit so that you make sure you have fresh, unexpired medications so that as time goes on and you kind of forget to go in and check your supplies, which inevitably happens because life, um, they aren't expired when you go to use them. Next is tools for medical supplies. So if you're an individual who has durable medical equipment, if you have a wheelchair or items like that, things that you might need to think about. For the wheelchair example would be a patch kit for the wheels if they aren't rip proof, as well as backup power source. I believe someone mentioned it on the last event on Tuesday. But things like backup power for a wheelchair, you can reach out to the manufacturer and ask them if there are specifics. You can buy backup batteries through the manufacturer, as well as some other power sources. There are items that you can get that are like solar powered generators and energy, as well as like gas fueled. You'll just have to think about the components that go with that as well, like fuel. Then is gloves. If you are somebody that uses a wheelchair and you have a manual wheelchair, you also have to think about gloves, which would protect your hands if you're going over surfaces that are possibly dangerous for you, as well as spare house keys and car keys, garbage bags, sleeping bag, as well as a pad if you'd like a pad to sleep on, or if you know that you have back problems or shoulder problems or things like that, you might want to invest in a really nice sleeping pad, a phone charger, a power bank is also going to be imperative if you don't have one already. They're really accessible on Amazon or any online website. There's solar powered options, there's rechargeable options, there are battery powered options, all different lengths of time. So there's really great options out there. Whistle, communication cards, which we'll also talk on our communication event, but that'll be something. So if you aren't able to have verbal communication or you're in a situation that you can't do that, this communication card can fill in for that. And you can point to things or spell things, or you can write them down based off of it. It's really useful. Then N95 mask in case there are hazardous things out in the air or exposure. Can opener for food. So if you opt for food options that are canned, you have to think about components that go off of it like that. Local maps, physical maps, since you might not have access to the internet. Hand sanitizers and sanitary wipes. Important documents, which we will refer to and go into further in a couple more slides. Pet food and pet medical records. We don't want to forget our fluffy pets. They're part of the family as well. So you want to make sure that you have the water and the food necessary. If the animal that you have has medication that they take, you want to make sure you grab that as well. Lighter or matches. Honestly, it'd be great to have both so that in case one doesn't work, you have the other. And then a full change of clothing, including shoes. And then a twin bucket toilet, which we won't have time to cover, but I do have a video linked by the wonderful Anne, who I believe is in this meeting. I know she was in the last one. And she's created some great resources, and we have a link to how to create a twin bucket toilet. When you are sheltering in place and staying, you have to start thinking about long-term options. And one of them, which is less fun and exciting, is the sanitation related aspects of it. So that is hugely important. And we have that linked in the notes that'll come out to your email. Okay, so important documents. I'm gonna pause and get some water before I lose my voice throughout. All right. So it's good to have either physical or digital copies. If you can do both, that's amazing. But I know some people are in situations where you just don't have time to do both, or it might cost a lot of money to print. Maybe you're more comfortable with one version or the other. So we put this on here to kind of go over things like insurance, health, home, pet, and auto insurance, medical history and your medication list, social security card, passport, visa or green card, death or birth certificates, driver's license or state ID. I misspelled, but a property deed or a rental agreement, or your mortgage if you're someone who pays a mortgage, a vehicle title and registration, and financial documents if you have your taxes from the last year or your bank statements so that you know your banking numbers. It's amazing how much we take for granted as being on a technical device. Um, Remembering your passwords and your numbers for your accounts and things like that. And as we're going through this, those are obviously very important documents that you wouldn't want anybody to get a hold of. So for the digital options, I included a picture of a flash drive on here, and it is a recommended flash drive. It is the Iron Key Kingston. There are federal information processing standards, and this type of flash drive has met those standards set out by the US government for protecting sensitive data. So this one specifically has a keypad lock on it, and they have varying rankings of information sensitivity levels. And so this one on here is a 130. So again, it meets the requirements set out by the US government for protecting that data. So it is a little intimidating. Think about all of these documents being in one place. So if you can, if you're doing the digital version, options like these flash drives or some sort of flash drive that has a password on it, highly recommended. So now we'll talk about go bags. Once again, this will be unique to each person based on what you need. But you'll need water, kind of similar to what we were talking about for the stay kits, where at least 1 liter, but you want to know how you're going to get water beyond that point. If you can ideally put way more than 1 liter, that's preferred. But we also know that this is going to be something you'll have on you if you're evacuating. So some water purification options after. You could get a water filter. There are Life Straws. Sawyer is a brand that does water purification devices. There are also tablets. And then it's good to think about a device that you could heat and boil water in as well to purify it so that you have options for longer term. Or if your water is exposed to something or you're not sure, it's always good to be on the safer side. Purify it if you can. Ideally, you'll have the steps and the resources to be able to purify it. And then we kind of talked about non-perishable food. For a go bag, it might not look like as many meals as we had laid out in the other kit that was closer, like, or at 2 weeks amount. But you at least want to have 72 hours worth of meals. Also, I want to refer back the water, we want more than 1 liter because 1 liter per person per day is that estimate. I just put that on there to refer back to the 1 liter that we were talking about in the stay kit. The flashlight or headlamp with the extra batteries as well. Again, a first aid kit. This is when you might want to have like either the kits that attach to a bag if you want to save yourself a little bit of space, or just a normal first aid kit. It can get really specific. There's some pre-made go bags that get really technical with added on kits and items and things like that. So you might see those, but as long as you have first aid and some way to help yourself with medical supplies, that's important. Next is extra medications and medical supplies as well from the last kit. Change of clothing and shoes. And then hygiene products, paper and pen and a marker in case you're out and about and you have to go home, grab your go bag, or you're at home, you grab your go bag. You can leave notes for people. You can write down directions. If you need directions, you can write down important information, anything like that that happens that we would immediately go to our phone for but might not have access. A phone charger, a paper map of the area. You can also get paper maps at AAA, as well as a lot of the like city council or like commission halls. They will have information. Welcome or visitor centers will have things like that. Could probably print them out. You can definitely print them out online as well. The important documents, which we just listed, the communication card. Again, if you can't have or don't have verbal communication, the N95 mask, an emergency thermal blanket. This can also be used if you do have to evacuate somewhere like a shelter. You can use it for sensory blocking or providing kind of visual shelter as well. A lot of times, if you're in a really inhabited space, it can be a lot going on, a lot of stimuli. Pet food and pet medical records, and a photo of family members and pets. Of course, we don't hope for it, but in case you do get split up from your family members, or if you have household members or a pet, like we said, events happen at any moment. So the likelihood of you being at work or somebody else in the household being out of the home is incredibly likely. And having a photo to be able to identify them, point them out, reunification process, anything like that is super helpful. And then you want to have cash, small bills for this cash. You might be in an event that's large enough that it takes down things like banking systems. You won't be able to use your credit card possibly. So it's always good to have those options. And then we'll talk about the get home bag. So this will have your emergency phone numbers. This would also be a list where you have important locations. This is like your partner's number. If you have children, your children's phone numbers, their school's phone numbers, doctors, veterinarians, neighbors, your out-of-town contact, which we will talk about in our communication event on Thursday. This is your culmination of all the important numbers. Relatives in the area, if you have relatives in the area, everything with that. Next is medications. Again, if you want to keep those in case you are out and about, not just some over-the-counter if you have minor scrapes and bruises or stomach issues or things like that, but also prescriptions. Water and food. This is for possibly a shorter amount of, well, it will be a shorter amount of time than 2 weeks. This is for getting from one point to the next. But you do want to at least have some food and water on you, similar to if you're going on like a hike, a day hike or something like that. You don't want to go without any sort of food and sustenance and water and everything. You also want to have sturdy shoes. You might be at work and you might have to leave immediately, and you don't want to have to be walking home across the city in business shoes or any myriad of things like that. A whistle, again, you can use it for alerting. You can, yeah, it could be really useful, mostly for gathering attention, or if you wanted to direct somebody to where you are. Paper and pen, similar to what we were also saying before, where it's good for writing down notes or notifying if you leave an area, hey, I'm evacuating, this is my note, I'm heading this way. If you're stopping along the way, you can get directions from people on what is open and what is accessible on your walk home. An N95 mask, a first aid kit, a headlamp and flashlights. Again, a paper map and a rain poncho or trash bag. Something, especially since we're here in Seattle and we do get a lot of rain, something to protect you from that rain. Again, a photo of family members and pets, and then cash, small bills. So we'll go over evacuating. We will go over it more in depth of creating different plans. There isn't one size fits all for plans, and they adapt and they change over time. Maybe you have a family member who is currently in school but will not be in school in a year. And then, of course, you have to adapt your plans and change it. But this is kind of a general overview of it before we get into it later on Thursday. But you want to first identify potential risks, and then what your needs are as well. So thinking about your daily activities, what locations you're at, and then you want to make your plans with those in mind. So maybe you have a full-time job. You'll want to take into account that you will be probably at that location since you spend maybe 40 hours a week at that spot. Where are the other people in the household? Where would they need to come from? If you are all home, what would that look like? It gets much more in depth, but that's the general of thinking about what does it look like based on your daily life, and then what would be your needs. It might be transportation needs, it might be resource needs, it might be time needs. And then you'll want to assign roles based off of that. This is really vague, and we will get more in depth on it, but it could be if we are all home and there are multiple people in the household, who can be the one to grab the resource kit? Who can be the one to go check and make sure everybody in the house knows either to shelter in place or to evacuate? If it is evacuating, who is going to grab the pet cat? Things like that, so that it's not a flurry of chaos when it does happen, so that it feels more prepared. You've gone over it, everybody knows what to do. Then identifying different exit routes. If you're in an apartment building, this might look like either the stairs off of one side of the building or stairs off of another. This ties into if you're somebody with mobility needs or different mobility needs, having extra items like a cane next to the door, next to any of the exits in your home, having a manual wheelchair if you can versus an electric wheelchair. For a lot of apartment living or people that are above the first floor, they do have stair chairs. It could either be a mechanical one or a physical one that kind of like folds out that's kept in the stairwell. That does require other people, so you will need to know like who's around. There are areas of refuge, like the flat areas in a stairwell that are kind of the landing between the next level, where it might be good to know or assign somebody who can help you once you get to the refuge area. Um, Having a personal support team in this, which we'll go over on the next slide, is really important so that you, again, you know that you have some individuals who are at least nearby, or getting to know your neighbors, having somebody who's immediately nearby who will be able to help you for all different things if you have an event happen and you need some resources or some assistance. Then choosing a meeting location that is a couple of meeting locations. So one that's outside of your living location, so 20 to 50 feet, not too close that if there is an event at the building and that becomes unsafe, you don't want to be anywhere near that or near a structure that could fall or a vehicle. But you want to be further away, but not, in the next town over. Then you want to have another meeting location set up with the people in your home so that everybody knows of these locations. But you want this one to be outside of your neighborhood in case it's an event that is a bit larger, so that you have a further out place to meet, as well as one that's this one is a bit further outside. Maybe it's if you are in say you're in University District, maybe this is in an area that's further north and you are in Northgate or something like that, where it's different, varying degrees of being away from that hazard. And then you want to make sure that you have your go bag. Getting ready and having that, and then being able to practice your plans. If you have the practice, and practice makes perfect, but perfect may not happen. It's great that you're getting these and replicating them and knowing that by doing it and getting the muscle memory down, you're hopefully mitigating anything that will pop up. Um, you know, there will always be things that pop up, so I shouldn't say that, but having that practice will really help you to know where the bag is, when to grab it, what to do. So transport, there are transport options with evacuating in mind, and this is also an ever-changing list. I am just trying to get some resources right now. But King County Office of Emergency Management has, I have their link as well as a phone number that has, not a phone number, but a website that has further information on what those transport services might look like during evacuation. And there are things like access transport, which can help with moving people and coordinate assisted transportation. But a lot of times this is kind of coordinated, or these like assisted large evacuations. They're coordinated through the city or through emergency managers. So if you're somebody who uses access transport on a day-to-day for mobility outside of public transport, this might be impacted, but it also might still run. It's just calling and seeing when an event, or if an event does happen, what it looks like at that moment. But if you have alert systems set up, which hopefully you do, you'll also receive notifications of evacuation services that will either bring people to shelters or coordinated meeting locations or evacuation locations. And then going back to the personal support teams that we had referred to, this is at least 3 people that you know and trust. It can be a family member. It can be somebody that you are close with at work, a close coworker, a neighbor, ideally somebody that is walking distance from you. And these individuals will need to be somebody that you trust enough to let them know how to enter your home, somebody that is familiar and you can share your routine and schedule with them. And you're also going to update them with information about your care, if that looks like operating medical equipment or supplies. Maybe it is somebody that is a close friend and they're part of your personal support team. They live nearby, they're walking distance, and you have a maybe you're diabetic, and then you ask them and show them how to use your medical equipment in case that is an event that you need assistance with. And then you're also going to let them know of your evacuation plan. These are people that would be able to assist you and update, and you can reach out to them, or if you're unable to reach out to them, they can help get people in contact and get resources. And if you need assistance, things like entering your home, they can go in and help you if you're in a position that you aren't able to leave on your own, things like that. So having these people and resources laid out ahead of time is incredibly important. And again, keeping those information lines and all of those aspects updated. It isn't just one conversation. Oh, hey, could you be my friend that lives nearby to help in the event of this? You do need to let them know, oh, hey, by the way, I changed my schedule. And, keep them updated on these things. So I know that was a lot of information. Um, so we're going to kind of go into a collaborative discussion about some of the items we covered, if any of them were items that you already own, and then if there are also items that you personally thought of that you want to include in your stay kit, go bag, or get home bag that work for you personally. So you can either put in the chat or unmute.
I'll throw this out there because it's something I've had to think about before. I have a medication that when I'm not actively using it, it has to be refrigerated. So that's not always the easiest thing to plan for in terms of time. I have like a specialized cooler that I have bought for it when I was traveling long distances and needed it refrigerated. And also just sort of like the cheaper normal coolers are usually fine for like short periods of time. But if you were ever in an instance where you didn't have power or you didn't have a way to like keep it cold for a long time, it's a little bit more logistically daunting.
Yeah, that's a great example. Refrigerated medications are something that a lot of people have. And a lot of times it can look like a variety of options for those backup power sources. And unfortunately, all of them are going to also be an additional cost. And it's a lot to think about and pay for and prepare for. And I'm glad you found an option that works for the longer distance travels. But yeah, it is an ongoing decision of, what you need and what is the best one on the market. There are solar options, but we do also live in Seattle. So maybe that takes perspective on it. And then options that use fuel sources, like gas power generators, as well as battery powered, definitely adds and is thought provoking for each one.
This is Cindy Barker, she, her. I have gray brown hair and wear glasses, and I type slower than I talk. So I'm going to add that food to store would don't store rice or noodles or anything that takes both heat and water, because in a major disaster, those might be two things you don't have. So you want to try and think of things you can eat, like I laughed at earlier, tuna right out of the can.
Yeah, exactly. That's a great one to bring up. A lot of times people will hear, I know I've seen videos of people that are talking about getting ready for a hurricane and they're going out and they're buying milk, eggs, and bread,
Mhm.
um, which you have to refrigerate your milk, you have to cook the eggs. Um, Ideally, you don't want to go out and buy things that cause more resources to be needed. Like Cindy was saying, you might not have the access to heat things. You hopefully will have your water that you've already planned ahead and stored. But yeah, cooking rice, cooking pasta. Imagine you won't have a full kitchen setup. Uh, MREs, the meal ready, uh, meal ready,
Ready to eat.
ready to eat. Yeah. Those are a nice option. You just add water. You don't have to heat. Things like freeze-dried meals that are useful for a lot of camping, those you do have to heat often. So if you have your access to like a cook kit or a propane stove or something like that, again, if you are an outdoor enthusiast and you have camping gear, you might already have that. Um, so sometimes there are, yeah, don't go for rice, don't go for the options that require other resources like a fridge, like access to heat consistently and boiling things. All right. Well, thank you so much, you guys. Those were wonderful additions to the collaborative discussion. Um, I did notice that it is one. I want to give you guys some time, go through this. The homework for next week, or I guess the homework to do now is to think about and start building your own stay kit, go bag, and or get home bag. Obviously, there are a lot of items and things to think about with it. So, don't expect to have it done and created in a day. But things like going out and either um, getting some water and storing some water around your home. We didn't talk about space, but things like water can be stored really well in a closet or maybe behind your toilet where there's empty space. Or if you have a storage area, of course, that's great. Um, as well as thinking about the bags themselves or some of the items, like a headlamp. You might be able to go to a secondhand shop and you might be able to get them for much cheaper prices. Obviously, you don't want to get used or items that might be tampered with for things like medical supplies and first aid kit. But there are some other options that you can look at that don't cost a ton of money that can get this going for you and just get you thinking about the process and get it started. And then second is locating your home's electrical box, gas meter, and main water shutoff valve. Just knowing where these are might be something that you haven't thought about. Maybe you live in a house that you know where everything is, or maybe you live in an apartment building that has a lot of these resources compiled and you don't know where they are. But just to get you thinking about that, and we'll talk about that for next week. Once again, we have the QR codes to sign up for Alert Seattle. The Alert Seattle webpage also has a list of amazing phone numbers that you should write down or add to your phone. These include reporting blocked sewer drains, down power lines, temporary sheltering resources, anything like that, as well as Alert King County, which if you add your information, you get info about flooding, road closures, transit alerts, things like that. Also, if the QR code option is not ideal, again, these will all be linked in the notes that are sent out after this meeting. And then we do have one more QR code, which again is also a link in the notes, and it is for the event feedback survey. So this is the second meeting of this 4-part series, and this is the first time we've put on this series. So I'd love to hear your feedback, and it helps us to create some better content, fix what was needing to be fixed, or do more of what was enjoyed, and just kind of get an idea of how you guys are feeling. And then lastly, if you do have any questions, feel free to reach out to the email on the screen. It is my first name at disabilityempowerment.org and the Disability Empowerment Center website as well. So thanks, you guys. Sarah will wrap us up now.
Yeah, I don't have a ton more to add, just that our webinar today was recorded and will be uploaded to the Disability Empowerment Center's YouTube channel. So if you'd like to revisit the conversation or share it with others, you'll be able to access it there once the webinar series is complete. So after the 4th one, those will probably be posted soon after that. And we hope you'll join us for our next session on February 10th, where we'll be talking about utilities and preparing for power outages. So thank you all for being a part of this conversation and have a wonderful rest of your day.
Thank you.